The crimson nebula stretched across the viewport like spilled blood against black silk. Prince Zethkar of the Vorthak Empire pressed his scaled palm against the reinforced transparent steel, watching the human scout ship drift helplessly in the void. Its hull bore scorch marks from plasma fire, and debris sparkled around it like dying stars. "Magnificent work, my princes," Admiral Corvin's voice crackled through the bridge speakers. The veteran commander's 3 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he surveyed the tactical display. The human vessel is disabled. No distress signals detected. This will send the perfect message to their pathetic species. Prince Velthor, youngest of the royal siblings, shifted uncomfortably in his command throne. His violet-scaled hide rippled with nervous energy. "Father will be pleased. The humans have been expanding too aggressively through our outer territories." Prince Zethkar nodded, though something nagged at him. The human ship had put up surprisingly fierce resistance for such a small vessel. Their weapons, while primitive by Vorthak standards, had managed to damage 2 of their escort fighters before succumbing to overwhelming firepower. "How many crew aboard the scout ship?" "Scans indicate a single life form," reported the sensor officer, her gill slits fluttering with excitement. "1 human, likely a reconnaissance pilot." The bridge crew exchanged pleased, chittering sounds. A lone human against an entire Vorthak battle group. The irony was delicious. These humans had been causing problems for months, establishing mining operations in systems the Empire had marked for expansion. Their technology was crude, but their determination annoyingly persistent. "Shall we board and interrogate the survivor?" Velthor asked, already reaching for his personal sidearm. The plasma pistol hummed with deadly energy. Zethkar considered the options. A live human prisoner could provide valuable intelligence about Earth's military capabilities and expansion plans. The Empire's intelligence corps had been demanding fresh subjects for their interrogation techniques. "Prepare a boarding party. Full battle armor. The human is to be taken alive if possible." The boarding shuttle detached from the massive Vorthak dreadnought with practiced efficiency. Through the viewports, the princes watched their elite warriors approach the crippled human vessel. These were no ordinary soldiers, but the cream of the Imperial Guard, veterans of a dozen conquered worlds, enhanced with cybernetic implants, and equipped with weapons that could level city blocks. "Signal from the boarding team," the communications officer announced. "They're cutting through the outer hull now. Resistance appears minimal." Prince Velthor leaned forward eagerly. "How minimal?" "The human vessel's defensive systems are completely offline. No energy signatures detected from weapons or shields. It's completely defenseless." A satisfied rumble passed through the bridge crew. This would be easier than expected. The human pilot was probably cowering in whatever passed for their ship's safe room, waiting for the inevitable capture. Perhaps they would surrender immediately once they saw the might of Vorthak battle armor. On the tactical display, the boarding shuttle attached itself to the human vessel like a metal parasite. Cutting beams sliced through the hull plating with surgical precision, creating an entry point large enough for the assault team. The princes watched with predatory interest as their warriors disappeared into the alien ship. Minutes passed in silence. The bridge crew monitored communications channels, waiting for the triumphant report of a successful capture. The human scout ship continued its slow tumble through space, apparently lifeless and broken. "Boarding team report," Zethkar commanded into his throat microphone. Static filled the channel for several heartbeats before a strained voice responded. "My princes, we have entered the vessel. The human appears to be waiting for us." "Waiting?" Velthor's head spines bristled with confusion. "Explain." "The creature is in what appears to be their bridge. It shows no signs of fear or surrender. It's just sitting there, watching us through the viewport." The princes exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Most species cowered or fled when faced with Vorthak warriors. Only the most battle-hardened enemies showed such calm in the face of certain death. "Perhaps it's injured," suggested the admiral over the comm, "or in shock from the battle damage." "Negative, sir. The human appears fully functional. It's even smiling at us." A chill ran down Zethkar's spine. Humans were known for their unpredictability, but this behavior seemed particularly ominous. Why would a lone pilot, facing overwhelming odds, show anything resembling amusement? "Proceed with caution," he ordered. Secure the prisoner and extract whatever intelligence you can from their systems. The response came back immediately, tinged with something that sounded almost like nervousness. Understood, my prince. Beginning approach now. The silence stretched for exactly 47 seconds before the screaming started. Prince Zethkar jerked upright in his command throne as inhuman shrieks erupted from the communications array. The sounds coming through were unlike anything in his experience of warfare. These weren't the clean deaths of plasma fire or the quick gasps of decompression. These were the sounds of predators being torn apart by something infinitely more dangerous. What's happening? Velthor's voice cracked as he gripped his armrests with claws extended. The comm channel filled with a chaos of overlapping voices. Vorthak warriors, the most elite soldiers in known space, were screaming orders, warnings, and something that sounded terrifyingly close to pleas for help. Squad leader, report. Admiral Corvin's bellow cut through the noise. A different voice responded, younger and shaking with barely controlled panic. Sir, the human, it's not what we expected. Sergeant Creek is down. So is Trooper Vash. The creature isn't using weapons. Explain immediately. It's using its bare hands, sir. No tools, no weapons. Just its hands and it's moving too fast. Our targeting systems can't lock on. Prince Zethkar felt his 3 hearts skip beats in unison. Vorthak battle armor included the most advanced targeting computers available, systems that could track hypersonic missiles in flight. How could a biological creature move faster than their locks could acquire? The sound from the boarding party grew more desperate. Plasma fire erupted in short, panicked bursts, the distinctive whine of emergency weapon discharge echoing through the hull of the human vessel. But the screaming didn't stop. If anything, it grew worse. Impossible, whispered the sensor officer, her gill slits fluttering rapidly with stress. The readings show the human isn't enhanced. No cybernetics, no genetic modifications. It's completely baseline biological. Through the tactical display, they could see brief energy spikes inside the scout ship. Each spike corresponded with another burst of weapons fire and another scream cut short. The human vessel, which had seemed so helpless moments before, had become a slaughterhouse. Sir, requesting immediate extraction. The voice belonged to Corporal Thek, a veteran who had stormed the crystal cities of Nexus Prime without flinching. Now he sounded like a terrified youngling. This thing isn't natural. It's moving through our formation like we're standing still. Prince Velthor stood abruptly, his ornate robes swirling around his massive frame. Send reinforcements. Double the boarding party. No. Zethkar's voice carried absolute authority. Something was wrong here, fundamentally wrong in ways that made his warrior instincts scream warnings. All teams fall back to the shuttle. Immediate extraction. But the communications array had gone silent, except for static. Admiral Corvin's image flickered to life on the main screen, his scarred face grim with concern. My princes, we've lost contact with the boarding party. All bio signs have ceased transmission. The bridge fell into stunned silence. 12 Vorthak Imperial Guards, the finest warriors their civilization could produce, had been eliminated in less than 3 minutes by a single human pilot. It defied every tactical assessment, every piece of intelligence they possessed about the species. Perhaps their equipment malfunctioned, suggested the navigation officer weakly. Combat damage could have interfered with the biomonitors. The sensor operator's voice quavered as she read her displays. Negative. I'm detecting massive trauma signatures in the boarding shuttle area. The hull is, sir, there are impact craters and reinforced titanium steel alloy. From the inside. That's impossible, Velthor snapped. Nothing organic can generate enough force to damage military-grade armor plating. The human is moving again, the sensor operator continued, her voice barely above a whisper. It's heading toward our boarding shuttle. Every eye on the bridge focused on the tactical display. A single red dot, representing the human life form, moved with purpose through the corridors of its ship. The dot paused at the breach point where the shuttle had attached itself like a metal tick. Power up all weapons systems, Zethkar commanded. His voice remained steady, but his hand had unconsciously moved to his ceremonial sword. Target the entire scout ship. Prepare to fire on my command. The weapons officer hesitated. Sir, our boarding shuttle is still attached. If we fire, the shuttle crew is already dead, Zethkar replied with grim certainty. Whatever that human is, it's not something we can face in close combat. Through their sensors, they watched the red dot enter the boarding shuttle. For a moment, there was stillness. Then, the shuttle's hull began to buckle outward, as if something immensely powerful was testing its structural limits. My princes, Admiral Corvin's voice carried a note of genuine fear. I recommend we withdraw immediately. This situation is beyond our tactical parameters. Prince Velthor's pride warred with growing terror. We can't retreat from a single human. The shame would follow our bloodline for generations. Look at your screens, Zethkar commanded quietly. The boarding shuttle was coming apart. Not exploding, not burning, but methodically dismantled from within. Pieces of hull plating drifted away like metallic snow, followed by larger structural components. It was as if some impossibly strong creature was taking the military vessel apart with its bare hands. Then, the human appeared in the shuttle's main viewport. Every warrior on the bridge took an involuntary step backward. The creature looked remarkably ordinary by most standards. Bipedal, small compared to Vorthak physiology, covered in some kind of flexible clothing rather than natural armor or scales. But its eyes held an intelligence that was somehow both calculating and utterly wild. The human placed both hands against the viewport and pushed. The reinforced transparent steel, designed to withstand the vacuum of space and enemy weapons fire, cracked like an eggshell. Atmosphere rushed out in a glittering stream, carrying debris and the remains of Vorthak equipment. But the human didn't seem affected by the sudden decompression. If anything, it looked pleased. Then it jumped into open space, directly toward their massive dreadnought. The human moved through space like a missile given life and purpose. No propulsion system, no maneuvering thrusters. Yet it adjusted its trajectory with impossible precision as it hurtled toward their dreadnought. Prince Zethkar watched in horrified fascination as the small figure covered the distance between vessels with movements that defied physics. Emergency defense protocols. Admiral Corvin barked across all channels. All-point defense turrets. Target the incoming projectile. The ship's automated systems responded instantly. Dozens of rapid-fire plasma cannons swiveled toward the approaching human, their targeting computers calculating intercept solutions. But as the first barrage erupted from the hull, the human simply wasn't where the weapons expected it to be. It twisted in the void, somehow changing direction without any visible means of propulsion. The plasma bolts streaked past harmlessly as the creature performed aerial maneuvers that would have been impossible for any known species, even in atmosphere. In the vacuum of space, such movements should have been completely impossible. How was it maneuvering? Velthor demanded, his voice rising to a near shriek. There's no reaction mass, no thrust signature. The sensor operator's hand shook as she worked her console. I'm detecting minimal gravitational distortions around the creature. It's somehow manipulating local space-time. But that's theoretical technology. Even our best scientists can only dream of such capabilities. Another wave of point defense fire erupted from the dreadnought's hull. This time, several bolts came close enough to singe the human's strange clothing, but none found their mark. The creature continued its relentless approach, now less than a kilometer from impact. Prepare for boarding, Zethkar commanded grimly. All available security teams to the projected impact zone. Heavy weapons, authorization granted. Sir, the tactical officer interrupted. Impact calculations show the creature will strike Section 7. That's dangerously close to the reactor core. A chill ran through the bridge crew. Section 7 housed not only backup reactor systems, but also the primary life support processors for half the ship. If the human somehow managed to damage those systems, structural impact in 30 seconds, announced the ship's computer in its maddeningly calm voice. Prince Zethkar made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his considerably shortened life. All hands, prepare for emergency acceleration. Helm, maximum thrust on my mark. We'll shake this creature off. Sir, emergency acceleration at this range will stress the hull beyond safety parameters, warned the engineering officer. Do it. The massive dreadnought's engines roared to life, pushing the vessel forward with acceleration that pressed every crew member into their stations. Emergency inertial dampeners screamed in protest as forces that could liquefy unprotected organic matter pressed against the ship's structure. But the human didn't fall away or lose its grip on their hull. Instead, it landed with a sound that reverberated through the entire ship like a giant's hammer blow. The impact points showed on their damage control displays as a spiderweb of stressed metal spreading outward from Section 7. Impossible, whispered Admiral Corvin. The acceleration should have torn any organic creature apart. Even our own warriors need protection at these forces. Hull breach in Section 7. Reported damage control. Emergency force fields are holding, but we're reading massive structural damage. Something is cutting through the outer hull. The cutting stopped abruptly. For a moment, hope flared in Zethkar's chest that perhaps the human had been killed by the impact or the acceleration. Then, the internal sensors began registering a life form moving through their ship's corridors. Security teams to Section 7, he commanded. Use everything we have. Gas weapons, plasma cannons, explosive charges. Stop that creature before it reaches critical systems. The first security team lasted 18 seconds. Their screams echoed through the ship's communication system as the human tore through them like they were made of paper. These weren't ordinary soldiers, but the ship's elite guard, equipped with powered armor and weapons designed to stop armored vehicles. The sounds of battle were brief and utterly one-sided. Second team reports heavy resistance, came the shaking voice of a junior officer. The creature is moving too fast for visual tracking. Our weapons can't acquire target locks. Prince Velthor had gone pale, his normally vibrant scales fading to a sickly gray-green. What kind of monster did we attack? Third team is down, reported another voice. Fourth team is refusing to engage. They're requesting permission to fall back to secondary positions. Granted, Zethkar said immediately. He was beginning to understand that they weren't dealing with a normal biological entity. This human was something else entirely, something that their military doctrine had no provisions for handling. The creature's progress through their ship was methodical and terrifying. It moved with purpose, ignoring side passages and non-essential areas. Every choice it made brought it closer to either the bridge or the reactor core, and Zethkar suspected the human knew exactly where it was going. Life support failures in sections 7 through 12. Engineering reported with barely controlled panic. The creature isn't just destroying our defenses. It's systematically disabling ship functions. How can it know our ship's layout? Veltur demanded. This is a Vorthack military vessel. The schematics are classified at the highest levels. But even as he spoke, more systems began failing. Not random damage from a rampaging creature, but precise surgical strikes at critical functions. Artificial gravity fluctuated in specific zones. Atmosphere processors shut down in carefully chosen sections. The human was dismantling their ship from within with the expertise of a veteran engineer. Admiral, Zethkar's voice was steady despite the chaos around them. Prepare the escape pods. Begin evacuation of non-essential personnel. My prince, we can't abandon ship to a single human. We're not abandoning ship to a human, Zethkar replied grimly as another section of their vessel went dark on the status display. We're abandoning ship to something wearing human shape, something that knows more about our technology than we do. The lights on the bridge flickered ominously. In the distance, they could hear the sound of heavy footsteps approaching through corridors that should have been impossible for any intruder to reach. The bridge doors, designed to withstand direct artillery strikes, began to buckle inward with rhythmic pounding that matched no known weapon signature. Each impact sent vibrations through the deck, plating that the crew could feel in their bones. Prince Zethkar drew his ceremonial plasma sword, its blade crackling with deadly energy, knowing it was probably useless but unable to face death without a weapon in his hands. My princes, Admiral Corvin's voice crackled over the failing communication system. I'm reading massive power fluctuations throughout the ship. The creature has reached the main engineering deck. Our reactor systems are being systematically shut down. How is that possible? Velthor's voice had risen to a near-panic pitch. Those controls require command authorization codes that only we possess. The pounding on the bridge doors stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, the crew could hear their own rapid breathing and the distant groaning of stressed metal throughout the ship. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows as primary power continued to fail. Then, a voice spoke from the other side of the doors. Human voice, calm and conversational, speaking perfect Vorthak with only the slightest accent. Greetings, princes of the Vorthak Empire. My name is Lieutenant Sarachun of the Terran Survey Corps. I believe you wanted to speak with me. The bridge crew exchanged horrified glances. Not only had this creature systematically destroyed their boarding party and disabled their ship, but it spoke their language fluently. How long had humanity been studying them without their knowledge? I know you're listening, the voice continued pleasantly. Your communication systems are still partially functional, and I can hear your life signs through the hull. Impressive ship design, by the way. Very sturdy construction. It took me almost 3 minutes longer than expected to reach this point. Prince Zethkar found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. What do you want, human? A sound that might have been laughter drifted through the damaged doors. Want? I want many things. I want to see my daughter graduate from the academy next month. I want to finish reading this fascinating book on Andromedan poetry. I want to try that new restaurant on Luna Station that everyone's talking about. But right now, what I want most is to have a conversation. You've murdered our crews. Your crews attacked a disabled vessel. The voice replied, and for the first time, there was steel beneath the conversational tone. I defended myself. Your soldiers were very brave, I'll give them that. But bravery doesn't overcome a fundamental misunderstanding of what you're dealing with. Velthor stepped forward despite his terror. You're just one human. How can you be this dangerous? Ah, that's the question, isn't it? The voice sounded genuinely pleased, like a teacher whose student had asked something insightful. You see, you made a very common mistake. You assumed that because my ship was disabled, I was helpless. You assumed that because I'm alone, I'm vulnerable. You assumed that because I'm human, I'm weak. The doors groaned under some immense pressure. Stress fractures appeared in the reinforced metal, spreading like spider webs across the surface. The thing is, Lieutenant Chun continued, I'm not actually helpless. This is what we call a patrol mission. Do you know what humans do on patrol missions? We'll look for trouble. And when we find trouble, we're expected to handle it ourselves. That's impossible. Admiral Corvin's voice interrupted from the speakers. No single being could possess the capabilities you've demonstrated. You're thinking about this all wrong, the human replied. You're assuming I'm a normal human. But I'm not normal, Admiral. I'm what my people call a volunteer. I volunteered for enhancement programs that your intelligence services have probably never even heard of. Genetic optimization, cybernetic integration, combat conditioning, tactical implants, and a few other modifications that are classified above your clearance level. The stress fractures in the doors widened, and they could see something moving beyond them in the damaged corridor. You see, when humanity decided to explore the galaxy, we knew we'd eventually encounter hostile species. Species that might think we look like easy prey. So we created people like me. We call ourselves scouts, but that's really just a polite term. What we actually are is a warning system. Warning system? Zethkar's blood felt like ice in his veins. Every human scout ship carries a beacon. Chin explained matter-of-factly. When we encounter hostile action, the beacon activates automatically. It sends a signal back to Earth containing detailed tactical information about whoever attacked us. Ship configurations, weapons capabilities, crew numbers, strategic weaknesses, and, most importantly, the precise location of the hostile force. The bridge fell into absolute silence except for the sound of failing systems. My beacon activated the moment you fired on my ship, she continued. The signal reached the nearest human naval base approximately 14 minutes ago. I estimate you have about 6 hours before the first response units arrive. 12 hours before the main fleet gets here. You're bluffing, Velthor whispered, but his voice carried no conviction. Admiral Corvin, you've been monitoring long-range sensors since this engagement began. Have you noticed any unusual subspace disturbances? Any quantum signatures that don't match known phenomena? The silence from the Admiral's channel was answer enough. The response fleet will include 12 heavy cruisers for dreadnoughts and approximately 800 enhanced humans like myself, Chun said conversationally. They'll be very interested to learn that the Vorthak Empire is attacking human vessels in neutral space. Very interested indeed. Prince Zethkar felt the last of his courage crumble. What do you want from us? What I want is very simple. I want you to survive long enough to deliver a message to your empire. Tell them that humanity is not as weak as they assumed. Tell them that attacking our scouts is a very poor tactical decision. Tell them that we're willing to coexist peacefully, but we're also fully prepared to defend ourselves. The doors finally gave way with a shriek of tortured metal. Lieutenant Sarah Chun stepped through the ruined doorway with casual grace, and Prince Zethkar understood immediately why their sensors had struggled to track her movements. She looked human enough, but there was something indefinably wrong about the way she moved, as if the normal constraints of physics applied to her only as suggestions rather than absolute laws. She was smaller than most Vorthak, which made her presence on their bridge feel almost absurd. But her eyes held depths that spoke of experiences beyond anything in their military doctrine. When she smiled, it was the expression of a predator that had decided not to kill them yet. "Impressive ship," she said, glancing around at the sophisticated command systems with genuine appreciation. "Your people build things to last. I particularly admire the redundant life support systems. Very thoughtful design for a warship." Prince Velthor raised his weapon with shaking hands, the plasma pistols targeting laser dancing across her chest. "Stay back." Chin glanced at the weapon with mild interest. "That's a Mark 7 plasma pistol, isn't it? Nice piece of equipment. Effective range of about 30 meters, cycle rate of 12 shots per minute, power output sufficient to punch through light armor." She took a step closer. "Unfortunately for you, 30 meters is much too far away to be useful." Velthor pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt erupted from the weapon's barrel in a brilliant flash of superheated gas, crossing the bridge in microseconds. But Lieutenant Chen simply wasn't there when it arrived. She had moved with impossible speed, stepping aside as casually as someone avoiding a puddle. 29 meters, she said pleasantly, having somehow covered the distance without seeming to hurry. Velthor fired again, then again, each shot missing by increasingly impossible margins. Chun moved through the plasma fire like she was dancing, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to predict and avoid each shot with contemptuous ease. When Velthor's weapon finally overheated and shut down automatically, she was standing less than arm's length away. "The quantum signatures are from our FTL drives. Different technology than yours, much quieter in normal space, but very distinctive if you know what to look for." She settled into one of the bridge chairs with casual familiarity. "They'll be here in about 5.5 hours now." "We could destroy you," Zethkar said, though his hearts weren't in the threat. "Admiral Corvin, target this bridge section. Fire all weapons." "I wouldn't recommend that," Chen replied mildly. "First, because you'd be committing suicide just to kill someone who's trying to help you. Second, because I've made some modifications to your weapon systems that would make such an attack problematic." The weapons officer's hands flew over his console, then froze as data scrolled across his screens. "Sir, I'm reading massive malfunctions in the primary weapon arrays. The targeting computers are locked out, and the power couplings have been physically severed. I did mention that I'd been through your engineering sections," Chen pointed out. "I'm quite good with Vorthak technology. Had to study it extensively before this mission. Your people build excellent ships, but you rely too heavily on centralized systems. A few precise modifications can disable entire weapon grids." Prince Zethkar sank into his command throne, the full scope of their situation finally becoming clear. They were helpless, trapped aboard their own vessel by a single human who had systematically dismantled their defenses while giving them a lecture on military tactics. "What happens when your fleet arrives?" he asked quietly. "That depends entirely on you," Chen replied. "If you're smart, you'll use the next 5 hours to compose a detailed report for your superiors. Include everything that happened here. Don't leave out the part where 12 Imperial guards were defeated by one human, or the part where your dreadnought was disabled without me using any weapons. Make sure they understand exactly what they're dealing with. And if we refuse..." Chen's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees. "Then the fleet commanders will assume this was an unprovoked attack on a human vessel, and they'll respond accordingly. Your entire battle group will be destroyed, and Earth will send diplomatic protests to your homeworld demanding reparations and territorial concessions." "You're offering us mercy," Velthor said with wonder. I'm offering you education, Chen corrected. Mercy implies you deserve punishment. What you deserve is to understand that humanity isn't prey. We're not weak, we're not defenseless, and we're not going away. We're here in this galaxy, and we're going to keep exploring and expanding whether other species like it or not. She stood and walked to the main viewport, gazing out at the stars with an expression that might have been longing. The universe is vast enough for all of us. There's no reason we have to be enemies. But if other species insist on treating us as enemies, they're going to discover that humans are very, very good at warfare. Your enhancements, Admiral Corvin's voice was thoughtful now rather than panicked. Are all human scouts like you? Oh no, Chen laughed, and there was something genuinely amused in the sound. I'm actually one of the more modest modifications. Most of my augmentations are focused on survival and reconnaissance. Combat scouts get much more interesting upgrades. The bridge crew absorbed this information in horrified silence. The choice is yours, princes, she said, turning back toward them. Spend the next 5 hours writing a report that might prevent a war, or spend them figuring out how to explain to your emperor why his battle group was destroyed by what you thought was a helpless prey species. She walked to the ruined bridge doors, then paused and looked back with what might have been sympathy. For what it's worth, I hope you choose wisdom. The galaxy is dangerous enough without intelligent species fighting each other over misunderstandings. With that, Lieutenant Sarah Chan disappeared into the darkened corridors of their ship, leaving behind 2 terrified princes and the growing certainty that the Vorthak Empire had just learned a lesson they would never forget.